Hey guys, Sarak here, and today I'm going to bring you my updated Sky Striker deck for my Yu-Gi-Oh! On a Budget series. Striker just got all its important cards reprinted in Magnificent Mavens, and with it came the new card Sky Striker Mobilize Linkage. And so yeah, the deck's got a lot more powerful recently, so let's take another look at it. We start with our 3 copies of Raye. Raye, as you know, tags out as a quick effect to summon a Sky Striker monster from your extra deck to the extra monster zone, and then if it's in the graveyard and that monster would be destroyed by battle or leaves the field due to a card effect, you get to special summon it back. You need to see this card to win. Unfortunately, it's a dark monster, which means it is a bestial target, which is a bit sad, but it's also important with the new card Linkage to facilitate some OTK plays. We play 1 copy of Roze. This is mainly as our light target for Linkage, but it also has a nice effect where it can summon itself from the hand, or if an opponent's monster in the EMZ is destroyed by battle or leaves the field from a card effect while it's in the graveyard, you can summon this card and then negate the effect of a face-up monster your opponent controls. Generally, we're dumping this off Hayate to use to make Linkage plays, or it's normal summoned because it's the ace we have access to in our hand. That's all the Sky Striker monsters we play. For our hand traps, we play 3DD Crow. This just got reprinted in Battles of Legend Crystal's Revenge, so we can now play this without it costing us over £6 a copy. Very simple. Discard this card, target a card in the graveyard, banish that target. Very, very good against Tier, very, very good against Bestials. Can force your opponent to use their Mudora/Keldo before they want to. Speaking of Mudora and Keldo, we have, indeed, Keldo, the Sacred Protector. You can summon it by discarding 1 other Earth Fairy monster, like Mudora, and then it will search a copy of Mudora for you, and you can banish this card from the graveyard as a quick effect, or from the field, to target 3 cards in either graveyard, and then shuffle those into the deck. Very, very good against Tier, because obviously it stops their Tier monsters from triggering if you shuffle them into the deck while the chain is before the chain has a chance to resolve. And obviously very good against Bestials, shuffling away their targets. Very, very good against Sky Striker. Just an all-round very good card, and they are very, very cheap at the moment, so pick them up. To go with that, we also have 3 copies of Mudora, the Sword Oracle. Does exactly the same thing as Keldo, except doesn't have the search effect, which is slightly sad, but is also a shuffle 3 back into the deck. For our spells, because of course this is the most important bit of Sky Striker, we have 1 mobilizing gage. If you control no monsters in the main monster zone, add 1 Sky Striker's card, and then if you have 3 or more spells in the graveyard, draw a card. No once per turn here. You want to loop this, activate this as much as possible. This card is the card that gets you winning the game when you start activating this every single turn. Sky Striker decks take a little bit of time to come online. They like to go second because they like to see that extra card. They like to break boards, which they can do very, very well. And then they like to just accrue incremental advantage over the turns. So yeah, it's at 1. You have to play 1. 3 copies of the new card, Sky Striker Mobilize Linkage. If you control no monsters in the main monster zone, locks you into Sky Striker Ace monsters, and then you send 1 other card you control to the graveyard. Summon 1 Sky Striker Ace monster from your extra deck to the extra monster zone, and then if you have at least 1 light and dark Sky Striker monster on your field or in the graveyard, the summoned monster gains 1000 attack. So this lets you cheat out your copies of your Link monsters without needing a Raye or a Roze to turn into them. So it turns useless spells or so on into that, or anything that you've summoned in the extra monster zone like a Nightmare Unicorn or similar into those. This lets you OTK by going Raye into Hayate, dumping Roze, Linkage, make Kagari, add back Linkage, Linkage, make shizuku, and so on. Very, very easy to OTK with this card due to the attack boost it gives. Obviously, it can help you dodge things like targeted removal, so stuff like infinite impermanence or effect veiler on, say, Kagari. You can then immediately use this, tag the Kagari out into a Shizuku or a Hayate, and still get the effect. It's a quick play spell, so obviously you can use it in the battle phase, which is where it will get most of its use. Just remember, you still have to have a main monster zone free, or your main monster zone's free to be able to use this card. You can't use it to get rid of, if you've got a Roze or something normal summoned in the main monster zone. Three copies of Sky Striker Mecha Widow Anchor. This is a Forbidden Chalice with a Change of Heart stapled onto it. A phenomenally strong card. The fact that it steals, allowing you to link climb really, really easily is really nice. Stealing something, then turning it into a Zeke obviously means that you never have to give it back, and it won't get any destroyed by card effects or sent to the graveyard by card effects because of that. Phenomenal card, the main card we use for our control. Shark Cannon allows you to target a card in the graveyard, banish it, and then if you have 3 or more spells, you can special summon it. Mine are in Italian. Don't worry, you're not going mad. It's not that you suddenly can't read English. Mine are in Italian. But yeah, we don't need to play the full lot of 3 because we're already playing DD Crow and the Ishizu card, so we can shave an extra copy. But it's nice to have the extra spells, because what we really need is to get 3 spells in the bin as quickly as possible. 1 multi-roll, the deck's Soul Charge, also makes it so that your opponent can't respond to the activation of any of your spell cards. And then, during the end phase, you get to set Sky Striker spells with different names up to the number of cards you activated this turn. Similarly, if you do something like, if you've activated 3 spells, you can search a Widow Anchor or something with a Shizuku, activate the Widow Anchor, and then reset it with multi-roll, all in the end phase. 1 Afterburners, only playing 1 because it's one of the more expensive cards in the deck, and also we don't want to send too much to graveyard by card effect, but sometimes it is very nice just to be able to have some spot removal for some cards, and also just the little bit of extra back row removal if you have 3 spells is really, really nice. 1 Area Zero. Some people are cutting this. I'm playing it and terraforming just, again, for getting extra spells into the graveyard. Yeah, it can put another spell into the graveyard for you, either by searching terraforming or just setting and sending a spell card you don't need. And again, helps with that little bit of consistency and provides you a little bit of insurance if your opponent decides to get rid of it. 1 Hornet Drones, another starter, very, very nice card, lets you get into any of your link plays and puts another spell in the grave. We're then playing for our expensive card, we're playing 3 Triple Tactics Talent. Please buy your copies of this card. This card is really, really strong, especially with Bestials and the Ishizu cards and lots of tier stuff going around, Sprite Elves and so on. Activating monster effects on opponents' turns happens all the time. This card will nearly always be live, either drawing you cards or stealing an opponent's monster. You don't tend to go first, so you don't tend to use the Forceful Sentry mode, but it does sometimes come up and can be a very, very powerful mode, especially if your opponent's only got a couple of cards left in their hand. But usually, you'd prefer to use one of the other 2 modes. But this card is really, really good in this deck because we bait out so many effective activations and we just have a really good resource loop, so getting more cards for that loop or taking away our opponent's resources is really, really good. Three Dark Ruler, because sometimes your opponent will play cards that you just can't out without this card, and hitting a big Dark World board or a Sprite board with toads or something similar is really, really nice, and it's just a nice catch-all out to things, and it's a spell, so that goes to the graveyard. So there's that. That's always really helpful for you. We now have our power one-offs, although the first two are very, very similar. Change of Heart and Mind Control, they do the same thing. They steal your opponent's biggest thing, or they force your opponent to use their negate on this and then allow you to resolve engage. You can obviously Mind Control, you can't attack, so you have to link it off. But Change of Heart you can also use to attack with as well. One Call by the Grave, again, very, very powerful spell. This card is not just a DD Crow, it's not just a hand trap stopper. This card is incredible. Learn all the different ways that this card hurts your opponent. Remember, it lingers for a full turn cycle as well. Very, very important if your opponent's trying to do stuff with T elements and so on. One Rotor, because Raye is a warrior and it's a spell that searches warriors. One Terraforming, because it searches the field spell, puts a spell in grave, and if you already have the field spell, then you just send it to the graveyard with the field spell. And then finally, to round this out, we have our 3 Infinite Impermanents. This card is obviously much cheaper now, thanks to being in Magnificent Mavens. It's still one of the best hand traps in the game. It's good going first, it's good going second, and yeah, you're never unhappy to see a copy of this in your opening hand, because it always gives you an extra point of interaction. What I will say is don't necessarily be afraid. You don't have to use this on your opponent's first turn. You can wait, see what board they put out, and then imperm them at the start of your turn before you make any plays as well. That is the main deck. For our extra deck, it's very, very simple. We have 3 copies of Kagari. Kagari gets you Engage. Back from the graveyard, it lets you activate Engage multiple times from turn, and it gets bigger. 3 copies of Shizuku. Shizuku gets you Engage from the deck, and it makes stuff smaller. If it doesn't get you Engage from the deck, it gets you Widow Anchor from the deck instead. No, it only searches during the end phase, and it has to be a different name to ones in the graveyard. Three copies of Hayate. Hayate wins you the game in time. It sends Engage to the graveyard for Kagari to get back. It sends you stuff to the graveyard to reset with multi-roll. It sends you stuff to the graveyard to buff your cards with Linkage. It's very, very useful. It's almost like a search. And yeah, we run 3 again because we go through these every turn. We don't want to run out. One Kaina. Kaina exists. Again, it can help you win the game in time. If you don't have time to go to battle phase, you just make Kaina, activate a spell, win the game. It also can protect you from an opponent's big monster sometimes, maybe. Most of the time you're using this because you need to turn you've left a Kagari or something on board for a turn cycle, and you need to make Kagari again, but you have to make Kaina first before you can make Kagari, because you can't make Kagari with a fire Sky Striker Ace. 2 copies of Zeke. This is your removal. It removes stuff that you've stolen by virtue of being a link 2. And it also lets you banish stuff until your opponent's next end phase. So if you banish something on your turn again, it banishes it for a full turn cycle. And it can also send stuff to the graveyard that you control. Again, put extra spells in graveyard, get effects from that, get rid of stuff that you've already attacked with, send your opponent's stuff to the graveyard that you've stolen, or similar. And then finally, we just have a little package to round it out. We have one Dark, the Dark Charmer. It's the most generic Charmer. Darks are everywhere at the moment with tiers, with Bestials and so on. So, yeah, Dark is the best one to play. And Raye is a Dark monster. One Nightmare Unicorn, catch-all out to anything. Yeah, very, very important to just have stuff that we can get rid of. Problematic cards, Floodgates, Pearlerino, or anything similar like that. And then finally, we have Budget Access Code. You won't make this every single game. You probably don't need it, really. Access Code is better in most situations, but this is £2.50, and Access Code is still over £30. So we're playing triple tack instead, and you will use triple tack a lot more than you will access code. But it's still, again, really, really good with stealing stuff. Make a dark, Widow Anchor something, or Shark Cannon something. And you will make Borrow Sword very, very easily. Just remember it requires 3 effect monsters to make, not 2 monsters like access code. That is the deck. It's very, very simple. It's Sky Striker. You all know and love / hate Sky Striker at this point. But I hope you enjoyed that deck profile, and I will see you again soon. Thanks for watching.